Welcome to the 147th episode of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast.
So unusually paranormal.
My name is Jason Knight, host of the show, and with me, as always, is
Sir Oscar Spector. I just got knighted.
producer extraordinaire and podcast co-host. Thank you for bequeathing us your presence, Sir Spector.
Yeah, the queen is a bitch, though, just so you know. The tea was a little too hot, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, okay? But she knighted me. It was cool.
Very nice. Very nice. Listeners, if you would like to skip our intros, please go to the show notes. You'll find a timestamp there waiting for you to get you right to the topic. Oscar, what has been going on with you these last 2 weeks?
Nothing too crazy. Nothing too much to report. Been preparing for Halloween. It's Halloween season, guys.
Halloween is here.
That means you start saving on your electric bill by taking down the AC units. In my case, 3 of them, and getting ready for the nice pockets of the cold winter months coming up. I love the winter. I love cold. Give it to me. Anyway, other than that, I have a little pumpkin thing for the girls. Kind of shape, carve pumpkins, and they can hang in them and shit. They love that shit. And in that Halloween aspect, I've been looking online to see if I can get a good version, like a solid version of the Squid Game costume for Halloween, which is an obvious choice, granted, but why not? It seems like it's easy enough to replicate, and there's a lot of shops out there since the show has been popping up. It's in everyone's feeds. It's on TikTok a lot. It's on Facebook and everything. And it's a fun show, and I really like it.
Man, I keep hearing about it. Haven't watched it yet. I have to get it into my queue to watch.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's a very strange concept. It is South Korean, the show, but it's a weird concept. But it takes the ideas of games that Gen Xers, millennials, and older played as kids, like with marbles or tug of war or shit like that, and maybe it or tag. You think of those games and you put it to its extreme measure, right? And in this situation where people are forced to play this game and the losers get killed. Basically, it's a real life and death situation, and they all do it for hopefully redemption via money. Anyway, so it's a fun show. I'm not finished with it yet, I should say, but I'm almost done with it. It's a lot of fun. Brings you back to the old days.
Yeah, definitely want to check it out. So you're saying it's all over TikTok, this show?
It's everywhere. This
Squid Game.
Right now it's kind of everywhere. Yeah.
All right, I'm a little behind, but I will catch up and let you know what I think.
Yeah, let us know. What about you? What you been up to?
Oh man, just work. There's literally nothing interesting on my front the last couple, I don't know, feels like months.
Well, if you listen to the Outtakes, folks, he did see a very particular movie that has taken up his mental brain capacity lately. But it's already in the Outtakes, so just wait for that. But yeah,
okay,
other than that, though, you're saying just work?
Yeah, because my blood pressure just spiked when you mentioned that movie.
I didn't even fucking mention it.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, work. See, and it's a really strange thing. So I'm now in sales. I have a kind of a really high profile sales job, and no one's talking about it, but we are in the middle of a global supply chain crisis that's affecting not only my industry, but so many other countless industries. It is a horizontal problem that's happening in the world right now. And no one's talking about it. It's not in mainstream news, media, social, otherwise, no one's talking about it. But yet it is completely disrupting the global economy. And so I've just been for the last, I don't know, it seems like a year at this point, if not damn near close to, just dealing with the fallout of that day in, day out. And it just beats me to death. It's bad. It's bad. I'm doing okay financially, thank God, but it's bad. And as it progresses, I'm really starting to be convinced that there's something greater going on here, especially how it's not being covered. So that's just been taking up so much of my time, is dealing with the fallout of that at my company. So
yeah, I can see
that's
Steven
it.
Soderbergh. I can probably see Steven Soderbergh make a movie about it in 5 years or something. Because he does that a lot. Yeah, and by the way, it's affected my industry. For those who remember, I work at Starbucks. So like if you frequent Starbucks and you realize that, hey, they've been out of peppermint or toffee nut or very, very hibiscus for like months now, consistently, this is part of the same thing.
Yeah.
That we're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
Affecting everywhere.
Yeah, because if it's not coming from overseas, if it's here in the States, there's issues with transportation, be it boats coming here from other countries, to trains, to trucks, to longshoremen, to customs, you name it, it is affected. And yeah, you'll feel it in something as silly as a drink, your favorite drink.
Right. Exactly.
Syrup in this case, or whatever. I vape, right? I quit smoking. I started vaping. I dropped my vape and I busted the tip that was on the vape, right? I'm like, shit, I got to go to the store, buy one of these things. Couldn't find it because most of them come from China.
Yeah, they do.
They're not here.
Yeah,
Couldn't
they
find
do.
them anywhere.
Yeah.
A stupid tip for your vape. This is what I'm saying. It's happening. It's affecting us. Try to order a computer, an appliance, a brand new car, cardboard. Paper is going to become a problem, they're saying. Consumer electronics, try to order it. Backlogged, backordered. It's a big, big, big problem. And again, no one's talking about it. And I'm starting to think there's something more to it, a conspiracy somewhere. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Point is, that's what's been taking up all my time. So I don't have anything super cool to report. I'm sorry.
No, that is a report. That is a good report. You already did it. You just don't have anything else. But that's
well, there we go. No, I don't have anything else. I'm sorry.
Got it. No, it's good. I like it.
Maybe another short intro this time. I don't know.
No such thing. Let's not get people used to the last one, okay? Just saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I like long intros. So, but with that in mind, you should really tell them how they can get in contact with us.
With that in mind, speed it up. The easiest way to contact the Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast is by visiting our website, our brand new website, by the way, Oscar. I don't know if you've checked it out. Completely revamped, much more mobile user friendly. Got a lot of complaints about trying to access the site via smart devices. You can do that now. ChicagoGhostPodcast.com. That's ChicagoGhostPodcast.com. From the website, you get to all of our social accounts, be it Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and of course, Patreon. And in case you didn't know, for just $5 a month, you could have access to a library of exclusive Patreon audio and video content. This is content that won't appear here in our public feed. It's just for our patrons. If you go to patreon.com/Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast, you can pledge your support for the show, have access to that library of exclusive content. What do you say? Support your favorite podcast.
Yeah, do something.
Do something with your life.
Now, luckily, this is the part, the one great thing about, not great thing, but the one thing that isn't affected with the shortages that Jay was just talking about is that, websites, the internet, that's still very much strong.
Yes.
That's like, there's no shortage of internet. That's not ever going to be a problem. But luckily, though, for all of us involved, especially for those people who might be, I don't know, willing to try their phone out as a phone, is that the phone lines are down. There's less phone lines out there, and we had to nix our phone number.
Do you know? I was wondering, where's he going with this? Now I get it.
We had to cut back on our very crappy, unprofessional, leads to a drug dealer through Idaho way phone number that we spew here on the show because reasons,
Reasons. So, we got them.
Right.
You just reminded me that I don't have the phone number anywhere on the new website. I've got to correct that.
Fuck. I can't believe I did that.
I got to contact the web designer. So the number he's talking about that'll get you to a drug dealer via Idaho is Chicago area code 872-529-0767. That's Chicago area code 872-529-0767.
But don't use it until more phone cables get brought from overseas.
There you go. They have to dredge the oceans.
Right.
So we have to these cables. Right. Yeah, while you're waiting for that to happen, you could watch The Many Saints of Newark. Oscar, let's take a break.
Fucking had to drop it in. Yeah, let's take a break.
I had to. I hate it so much. Listeners, welcome back to the show. Well, the lights are turned down low, the ceremonial candle is lit, and the drinks are flowing. Let's start this show. So, tonight we're going to be talking about the Shag Harbour UFO incident.
Shag, baby, yeah.
Oh, did you just pull out Austin Powers?
I did. I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Shag Harbour UFO incident. And I really believe that after researching, this topic so thoroughly, I really believe something happened here. This, I think, is one of those cases that we could say, yes, this was unidentifiable. Something really happened here in this tiny fishing village up in Canada. It's pretty amazing. And I love that we're covering this incident now because the 54th anniversary of the Shag Harbour UFO incident just passed on October 4th. So, and we're recording this on the 6th. So it's timely.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm curious to know at the end, once I spell all this out, what people think. Did something really happen here? Because I think it did. And if it did, the implications are huge. Okay. So the Shag Harbour UFO incident took place on the night of October 4th, 1967, around 11 p.m., near, like I said, a small fishing village called, you guessed it, Shag Harbour, on Nova Scotia's Atlantic coast. Now, you don't hear a lot about this case, which is kind of why I wanted to cover it. Maybe because it happened outside the U.S., as, in case you didn't know, Nova Scotia is part of Canada. Or maybe because it didn't happen in a densely populated city. After all, Nova Scotia is Canada's second smallest province in area, right after Prince Edward Island. Whatever. The fact is, the Shag Harbour UFO incident, which was really a crash and attempted retrieval of an unknown object, did happen. And it's often referred to as the Canadian Roswell. And at the time, again in 1967, the UFO case we're about to talk about was huge news, having at the very least 60 eyewitness accounts, one of which we'll hear later in this episode. Now, Oscar, we have an eyewitness interview made for us for this episode, conducted by a close friend of the show with ties to Shag Harbour, which is really cool.
That is cool. I have not listened to it yet, folks, by the way, but you will first.
Yeah. Not only did the Shag Harbour UFO incident have a ton of eyewitnesses, including airline pilots, military personnel, and police officers, the case was also investigated by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, the Canadian Coast Guard, which had only been formed a few years prior to this incident in 1962. It was investigated by the Canadian Navy and the Canadian Air Force, and it was even investigated by the United States via the Condon Committee. And of course, all the official investigation led to a lot of official documents. And that's the one thing the Shag Harbour UFO isn't short on: documentation. This case has a paper trail a mile long, and the attempted UFO recovery was even broadcast across Canada on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's evening news. That's something you don't see every day.
Wow. Yeah, especially when you compare it to our Roswell. Nova Scotia and Roswell are both known to be like middle of nowhere areas. obviously one really hot and one really cold, but
Yeah.
like similar, similar kind of like location types, and like you can see where like, oh man, it might be hard to get witnesses, but no, that's crazy that they did. I'll just say it sounds like a better job of telling people, like not hiding it, trying to. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what happened after Roswell? What happened at Roswell? Right? We talked about this in the extraterrestrial extravaganza podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
A report came out that a disc was down, and then immediately that was retracted, and
Yep.
and it was sealed. The lid put on it. Right? Not here. This was on the evening news, which is really pretty interesting. Now, what I think is really interesting is the fact that it was the officials that labeled this thing a UFO. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Air Force, the Canadian Navy, NORAD, the Coast Guard, and not the civilian witnesses. The civilian witnesses all thought a small doomed airplane went down in Shag Harbour, but not the brass. The brass honestly thought they had seen and were searching for a downed extraterrestrial craft. It said so in their reports. And I think that lends a lot of credibility to this story.
Yeah, it does.
Right? In fact, 36 hours after the event, several Canadian Defense Department officials signed off on a memo that made it clear that authorities had no idea what they were dealing with. The memo read in part, quote, "A preliminary investigation has been carried out by the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia. It has been determined that this UFO sighting was not caused by a flare, float, aircraft, or in fact, any known object," end quote. Pretty cool, right? For the officials to come out and say that. Actually, the Shag Harbour incident is one of the very few instances in which government officials formally declared that an unidentified flying object was involved. In other words, no official explanation was ever given to try and explain away the incredible events that took place on October 4th, 1967 at Shag Harbour. Now, I just want to take a little quick sidestep here and talk briefly about something I mentioned as far as official bodies that investigated this incident, the Condon Committee. Now, in case you don't know, the Condon Committee was a U.S. Air Force-sponsored program that ran from 1966 to 1968, headed by physicist Edward Condon. The purpose of the Condon Committee was to investigate UFO sightings and determine whether UFOs were, quote unquote, a problem that warranted continued government-sponsored research, like the research being conducted by Project Blue Book. Now, the final report published by the Condon Committee, called the Condon Report, stated that after investigating hundreds of case files of supposed UFO activity and UFO sightings, files mainly provided by Project Blue Book and civilian UFO organizations like the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, or NICAP.
Yep.
The Condon Report concluded that UFOs were not a problem, that most UFO reports were totally explainable, and that studying UFOs would yield no scientific benefit. And that was the Condon Report's determination on what the report called case number 34, the Shag Harbour Incident 2. The report provided absolutely no explanation for the Shag Harbour incident. In other words, move along, nothing to see here, and no reason to explore any further this particular incident.
Right.
In other words, the Condon Report really poo-pooed the idea of UFOs and little green visitors from other worlds, and Project Blue Book was quickly disbanded after the Condon Report was published. Or was it? Listen to Supernatural Current Studies podcast episodes 115, 116, and 117 to find out more about Project Blue Book.
Yeah, and also I mentioned, didn't we talk about NICAP when we talked about Skinwalker? I feel like I did. Or was it in that extravaganza where we mentioned NICAP? Because I remember researching that, and I remember Condon being one of the names.
It might have been in the extraterrestrial series.
Okay, because I thought it was in the other one. But okay, maybe you're right. Okay.
But maybe because, the Condon Report basically poo-pooed on UFOs and aliens, maybe this is the real reason why Shag Harbour incident kind of faded away, because the Condon report basically shot it down.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this investigative body, the Condon Committee, was involved in the Shag Harbour UFO incident. So again, big news when it happened, right? This incident captured the attention of high-level organizations, right? And actually in 2019, the Royal Canadian Mint issued this rectangular glow-in-the-dark image-changing pure silver coin commemorating the Shag Harbour UFO.
Wow.
Popular, right? Again, this coin is awesome. I got to get me one. But
yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's get into it. So what exactly happened on the night of October 4th, 1967 that caused such a fuss at high-level organizations? Well, to begin with, we must start with the sightings reported all over Eastern Canada before the actual crash in Shag Harbour. A fishing boat stationed off the coast of Sambro, Nova Scotia, called the MV Nickerson, with 18 people on board, tracked on radar 4 strange objects or blips in the North Atlantic for over 2 hours, up until about an hour and a half before the Shag Harbour crash. And so, Sambro is about a 3-hour car ride from Shag Harbour, or about 147 nautical miles. The fishermen also saw 4 bright lights in the sky, arranged in what they described as a rectangular pattern. The captain of MV Nickerson, named Captain Leo Marcy, was so moved by this incident that he felt compelled to file a report with the harbor master and the Royal Mounted Police. Numerous civilians witnessed objects in the sky up and down the Nova Scotia coast, prompting them to file panic reports mere hours before the crash. And we'll get into a few witness testimonies here in a bit, but like I mentioned earlier, we have an interview with one of those witnesses, a man named Norman Smith, a name mentioned in a lot of the articles you'll read about the Shag Harbour incident. So we have a fishing boat with 18 people on board, witnessing strange things in the sky and in the ocean on radar. And we're going to talk about civilian sightings. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about some amazing sightings reported by highly trained pilots who were fortunate enough to find themselves in the air and around Shag Harbour on the night of October 3rd, 1967, and on the night of October 4th, 1967, the night of the crash. First, I'd like to talk about Pan Am Flight 160, a Boeing 707 cargo aircraft that was approaching Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, about 44 driving miles or 38 nautical miles from Shag Harbour, and flying at 33,000 feet on the night of October 3rd, 1967, so the night before the UFO crash. All was routine and going well with Flight 160, when suddenly co-pilot Ralph Lowinger, Captain Kurt Olson, and flight engineer Mike Littlepage saw what they described as a huge formation of bright lights at their 11 o'clock position as they approached the coast of Nova Scotia over the Gulf of Maine, which is really close to Shag Harbour. It's the same body of water. Mm-hmm. The pilots described the object as looking like a cruise ship. It's pretty damn big.
Wow. Yeah.
Trying to rationalize away what they were seeing, the pilots thought the object could have been another large transport plane displaying full lights. And Flight 160's path was taking them straight towards this object. The pilots felt the immediate need to steer Flight 160 out of the other object's path to avoid collision, which they did. Not understanding what the hell was going on, the pilots contacted Boston Air Traffic Control and asked if their flight was still visible on Boston's radar. Boston confirmed that Flight 160 was visible on radar, to which the pilots replied, "Who's up here with us at our 11 o'clock?" Boston went silent for a moment, then came back and confirmed that Flight 160 was completely alone. No other aircraft was anywhere near the flight.
That
And
must have fucking given them goosebumps in that moment when they're like, "You're alone out there." But what?
But yet they're looking at this massive cruise ship looking thing, fully lit. Dude, I hate flying as it is. I can't even imagine what's going through their minds at this point.
Oh, yeah. For me, I'm like excited. You're living horror.
Yeah. So Boston comes and says, "Nope, you're up there alone." Yet the pilots were watching this cruise ship looking thing hovering up there with them. And eventually the strange lights disappeared. All three men on board Flight 160 agreed to not file a report. They wanted to avoid the paperwork and the hassle and the stigma of reporting something like this. And this is a decision that Ralph Lowinger says he regrets to this day. He wished he would have filed a report.
Okay.
Now, a few days after this strange encounter in the skies over Nova Scotia, Ralph Lowinger was listening to the radio, and he heard a news report say, quote, "The RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, has discontinued search operations for the strange light formations reporting falling into the sea near Yarmouth," end quote.
Wow.
Now, Lowinger realized immediately that this had to be the same light formation he and his fellow airmen saw in the sky on the evening of October 3rd, and in the exact same location. To quote Ralph Lowinger, quote, "To this day, I do not know what I saw, but it is clear that it was under intelligent control and coincided as to time and place with what was seen by at least 60 people on the ground," end quote, referring to, of course, the crash at Shag Harbour.
Right.
Pretty amazing.
Very.
Now let's talk about Air Canada Flight 305. This event happened on the night of October 4th, just about 4-ish hours before the crash at Shag Harbour. So at around 7 p.m. on October 4th, 1967, two pilots aboard Air Canada Flight 305 were flying westbound over Sherbrooke and St. John, Quebec, when suddenly a strange object appeared to the port side of their aircraft. The pilots claimed the unknown object was on a parallel course with their flight path, and it was tracking them through the skies. Now, in their official reports, First Officer Robert Ralph and Captain Pierre Charbonneau described the object as a brilliantly lit rectangular object with a string of smaller lights trailing the object. Now, keep in mind, the rectangular-shaped object witnessed by these pilots harkens back to what the fishermen aboard the MV Nickerson described, a rectangular object. Ralph and Charbonneau claimed to have noticed a sizable, silent explosion near the large object. And 2 minutes later, they saw a second explosion, which faded into a blue cloud around that same object. It seems whatever the pilots were witnessing was in trouble. Now, these explosions, especially the bluish color attributed to the second explosion, is going to be really important here a little later in this story. So we have some incredible events happening in the sky all around Shag Harbour leading up to the crash. We have similar descriptions of the objects. We have explosions, and we have official reports being filed by frightened, or maybe more like concerned and confused witnesses. Credible witnesses, too. Now it's time to take a look at what's happening on the ground, at ground zero, if you will. Now, the initial report came just before the crash on the night of October 4th, when a witness named Laurie Wickens, a 17-year-old Shag Harbour resident, along with 3 or 4 friends, reports differ on how many people were with Wickens, were driving through Shag Harbour on Highway 3, when they all saw an object about the size of a bus slowly descending towards Shag Harbour, towards the water. Wickens said the object had 4 lights arranged in a row, and they were going on and off. One light would come on, then light number 2, then 3, and then 4. And then they'd all go off for a second and come back on again in that 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern. Wickens and his friends watched as the object suddenly dipped to a 45-degree angle and fell below the tree line. And at the same time, the friends heard a whistling sound and then a loud bang like an explosion, just like the pilots on Air Canada Flight 305 reported a few hours earlier. Now, listeners, please go to the show notes. I have a picture, supposedly of this UFO, coming in for its watery landing on Shag Harbour. It's in the notes for you to see. The picture shows the UFO, whatever it was, descending or falling towards Shag Harbour, towards that water. Now, what's really strange is the object looks like a huge, fiery blue orb, accompanied by another object that looks like this big red diamond. Now, what I think is really coincidental with this picture is this blue orb looking object. Remember what the pilots on Air Canada Flight 305 said. They said that when they saw 2 explosions, the second resulted in this big blue cloud. The picture I have in the show notes shows what certainly could be a big blue cloud heading right towards the water. Is it a damaged aircraft of some kind? Anyway, check it out. Let us know what you think. It's a pretty amazing photo.
That's insane. I haven't seen it either, obviously, but I can't wait to see it.
That was very hard to get that photo. Can't find that photo anywhere. What I did is I was watching a documentary about the Shag Harbour UFO incident, and they put the photo in the documentary.
And you screenshotted it?
It wouldn't let me. Amazon doesn't let you screenshot movies. So I had to take a picture with my phone and then upload it that way. It's very difficult to find, but I got it. So listeners, check it out.
That's cool.
It just lends more credibility to the story. It really does. Okay, back to Lori Wickens. Thinking they were witnessing a deadly plane crash. Remember, I said in the beginning, civilian witnesses, they didn't claim this was a UFO. They literally thought it was a aircraft, one of ours, of human making, coming in for a crash.
Something normal.
Something normal, exactly.
Right.
So thinking they were witnessing a deadly plane crash, Wickens ran to a payphone and called the RCMP, right? The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties.
Mm-hmm.
At first, the police thought Wickens was drunk and making a prank call, so they ignored him. But because multiple other reports were coming in describing an object in the sky close to Shag Harbour, the police decided to check it out. One of the responding officers, RCMP Constable Ron Pound, witnessed the strange light himself as he drove down the highway en route to Shag Harbour. Wickens and about a dozen other people, including 3 Mounties, police, Constable Ron Pound being one of them, stood at the water's edge and watched in amazement as an orange sphere with lights on it, again described as being about the size of a bus or about 40 to 60 feet across, bobbed up and down in Shag Harbour, about 300 yards from where they were stationed on shore, where they stood on shore. And at about 11:20 p.m., the mysterious object slipped soundlessly below the surface. And that was it. The UFO was gone. Now, another civilian witness named Norman Smith was driving home to his father's house in Shag Harbour when he too witnessed the lights in the sky that seemed to be heading straight down towards the water. And shortly thereafter, Smith passed flashing police cars, also heading towards the harbor.
Right.
Now, intrigued, Smith went home. He roused up his father, and the 2 men, along with one of Smith's friends, headed down towards the harbor to see what all the commotion was about. Now, here's where I'd like to play the interview we have, because ultimately, Norman Smith, this guy jumps in a boat and heads straight out to where the UFO submerged.
I like his gusto already.
Yeah, right? Now, I think that's pretty crazy. I don't know if I would do that. I think I would be afraid to do that. But
you know that if the 4 of us were there, let's say Dave and Joe, you'd stay on the shore, but we would all 3 of us would go.
Go ahead. I'm good.
Yep.
Text me as you're rowing away. Let me know.
Text me.
Now, my friend, we'll call him John R., whose family owns an island north of Shag Harbour called Goodwin's Island. They actually own an island up there. Interviewed Norman Smith for us for this podcast. So a huge thank you to John for providing the interview for this episode. And towards the end of the interview, Norman Smith actually gives me a shout out. He uses my real name, so you're going to hear it. But still, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Now this interview, it's a video interview. So I think we'll put the video on Patreon so our patrons could see Norman Smith tell his story.
Okay, cool.
Listeners, don't miss out. Join our Patreon so you too could see this firsthand account. A link to our Patreon is in the show notes. Anyway, let's hear Norman Smith describe what he witnessed that night in October 1967. Oscar, could we play the interview?
Yes.
So what's your name?
Norman Smith.
Norman Smith. And where were you at in 1967 when I guess something hit the water? What hit the water? Where were you at?
Well, when I first seen it, David Kendrick and a friend of mine was coming from Cape Island, and we lived in Shag Harbour at the time. And they We see this thing in the over top of the trees, the lights. The first light looked like a full moon, and the next light was like that, and smaller till the last one on the tail end was like the size of a light bulb, and it was pointed at the ground, and it was stopped in midair. We thought it was a plane going away from us, and we could see the lights on it. It like going straight away. You couldn't tell whether it was moving or not. So we pulled over the side of the highway, and I got out. Couldn't hear nothing. You couldn't see nothing. Like
Total quiet.
Yeah, total quiet. Got a mosquito on your forehead.
You just killed my video here.
Anyway, we pulled over the side of the highway, and I got out, and David said, "Jesus, get back in the car. Let's go home and get your father and them fellas out on the lawn so they can see it." We had to drive about another 2 kilometers. When we got to my father's place, I ran in the house, got him. He come out, and then Lawrence my uncle lived in the next house. Ran next door and got him. We all stood outside. The Mounties was coming, sirens. We could hear the sirens coming from Barrington. And we followed the Mounties up to the crash site there in Shag Harbour. And it came down out of the sky, and it landed on the water.
Did it land in the water or on top of it?
On the water.
On top of the water,
You could still
and
see
it
the lights.
sat there.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, you could still see the lights. And we watched it for there was 16 of us, and out of the 16, two of them were police officers. They seen it. And after we watched it for probably 5 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, it was just saying you snapped the switch, and the lights went out, and we never seen another thing.
Did you see it ascend back up in the sky, or did just the lights went out and the thing disappeared?
The lights just disappeared.
Wow.
We didn't see nothing after that.
Wow.
So we called the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard was on Clark's Harbour then, and called the Coast Guard, and they came up. We got in 2 fishing boats, and we went out. This was like 10:30 at night.
Wow.
We went out with searchlights, looking for wreckage, because we figured it was a plane that had come down in the water. And it was between Bomb Portage Island, which is like 2 miles long, and it was between Bomb Portage Island and the mainland. And we went out and we searched all night long and never found nothing.
We owned our family owned Goodwin's Island.
Yeah.
Was it right around Goodwin's Island?
Goodwin's Island is above that.
A little bit north of that? Yeah.
West of it.
Did you believe in UFOs before that?
Never heard tell of them.
Do you believe in UFOs now?
Oh yeah, I'd love to see one again. I'd like to see the same thing that I see that night.
How big was the object?
Well, in the sky, it looked like the bigness of a big plane, big jetliner.
Was it like long, or was it like circular? Could you tell by the lights? Circular.
Yeah. And then when it was in the water, all you could see was lights. You couldn't see no object, just the lights. That's the only thing you could see.
Wow. That's a freaking incredible story, man. I can't believe you were actually there to see it.
Yeah.
So this is going to Randy Tucker. And say hello to Randy and Jason.
Hi, Randy and Jason.
And tell them you're not nuts.
And I'm not nuts.
See you guys.
I was told to say that.
Thanks, Norm.
Yeah.
What a cool story by Norman. And I love his accent. And I'll tell you, Norman Smith, he looks just like how you would expect a kind, tough old Canadian raised by the sea to look like. And what do I mean by that? Don't know. Join our Patreon to find out. And I know before we played the interview, I said he mentioned my last name and we're going to hear it, but I think Oscar in post, we decided to bleep out that last name, correct?
Correct.
And you just had a chance, magic of editing, to watch that video finally. What did you think? What did you think of Norman Smith's story?
It's a cool story. It's it feels like both an old-timer story, and because it's about his youth, and it tells a story about seeing the lights and then deciding to go to get his father back, and then to see the lights with him. It's like becomes like a moment, like a family moment to share, And I like how I guess a lot of that time of him seeing the lights and trying to intercept the lights, when it landed on the water, that he wanted to maybe help because he thought it was like a human aircraft. He thought that maybe something crashed and wanted to see if there's wreckage and whatnot. And obviously he never found anything, like he said, but like it was dark. It must have been really pitch black out there. I can't imagine doing that in a searchlight. But And it was such a cool story, and I like how he described it. And some of the words, like he mentioned something before, I didn't know what that word meant, but it's some colloquialism, I'm sure. Yeah, it was a cool story.
Nice. Very unique to have that for the show. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the overall story, one of the Mounties, the police who witnessed the UFO bobbing in the water, he called for a Coast Guard cutter, a rescue ship, in other words. And soon that cutter was on site, along with a few fishing boats that were already in the area, and a search began. What was described as a thick, sulfurous yellow foam drifted up from the harbor's depths and created this large slick on the surface of the water, described as being about 80 feet wide and a half-mile long. Kind of like the gas and oil slick that floats on top of the ocean when, God forbid, an airliner goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. The yellow foam was the only evidence that something was there in the water, somewhere deep below these search vessels. As the story goes, no wreckage and no bodies were ever recovered from this Shag Harbour incident. By the next morning, RCC Halifax, or the Joint Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the local NORAD station determined that all commercial, private, and military aircraft were accounted for along the entire eastern seaboard. It was looking less and less likely that whatever crashed in Shag Harbour originated from Earth.
Right.
For 3 days, divers searched the harbor's icy depths for any evidence of a downed craft, and officially nothing was ever found. It's like it never happened. Although there are people that swear this isn't true, some locals are convinced artifacts were recovered but kept secret. Isn't this always the case with stories like this?
Right.
A local fisherman claimed he saw Navy divers bring up aluminum-colored metal from the harbor's depths. No word on whether or not this actually happened, or if the debris recovered had anything to do with an actual UFO. I can tell you, no official documents exist that detail anything being recovered from the crash at Shag Harbour. But who knows? And really, this is where the official story of the Shag Harbour UFO crash ends. But according to legend, this is not where the Shag Harbour UFO incident ends. You see, there was a supposed second recovery effort off the coast of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, about a 37-minute car ride from Shag Harbour. According to a military witness, he was allegedly briefed that the UFO that crashed in the water at Shag Harbour had originally been picked up on radar coming out of Siberia. After crashing in Shag Harbour, the UFO traveled underwater to the coast, up to the coast, and came to rest on top of a submarine magnetic detection grid, reportedly off of Shelburne, where it was supposedly joined by a second vehicle, a second UFO, or maybe in this case, a USO, unidentified submersible object.
Yeah.
In his book called Dark Object, the world's only government-documented UFO crash, a book about the Shag Harbour incident, author and UFO researcher Chris Stiles describes a remarkably tantalizing incident that took place immediately after the crash at Shag Harbour. In Dark Object, Stiles claims to have interviewed former military insiders and members of the Canadian Navy's Fleet Diving Unit who told him that the unidentified object spotted in Shag Harbour had submerged under its own power. Didn't sink because it crashed, it submerged on its own and traveled to a spot on the seabed off of Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Stiles' sources told him that a secret flotilla was dispatched, a secret fleet of ships, in this case, 6 American and Canadian destroyers. They were dispatched and ordered to sit on the water and hold station over 2 UFOs that were sitting on the seabed. Just picture that. 6 huge, fully manned destroyer ships sitting out on the sea, keeping an eye on 2 UFOs directly underneath them. These weren't scientific research boats or civilian boats. These were the big guns, the biggest guns, in fact. Why do you think that is? According to Stiles' insiders, the flotilla observed one of the UFOs giving assistance to the other, giving it repair, and that the flotilla was ordered as a recovery mission to get a hold of that sweet, sweet alien technology. But when divers went down to determine what would be needed for the recovery mission to ascertain what they were dealing with and how to deal with it, the divers saw that there was activity taking place on the seafloor between the two UFOs. Again, like one UFO was lending assistance to the other. The divers even claimed to have seen biological activity, like actual physical aliens. That's when top military brass decided to change the mission from recovery to observation only. The destroyer flotilla sat over the submerged UFOs, observing them for a week, when, as the story goes, a Soviet submarine decided to violate the then 12-mile international limit between the two countries, Russia and Canada, in an attempt to make contact with the UFOs. The powerful US and Canadian flotilla were ordered to show challenge to these Soviet intruders. And as this confrontation was unfolding, both UFOs leave the seabed where they'd been sitting and move quickly toward the Gulf of Maine, where they shoot up from the seafloor, break the surface, and fly away. Now, as crazy as all this sounds, this departure from the sea coincides with the second major UFO sighting on October 11th, 1967. So 7 days after the crash at Shag Harbour, of two UFOs sighted in the Gulf of Maine area by multiple witnesses from Shag Harbour to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Now, possibly even more amazing is at the time in the Shelburne area where the secret destroyer flotilla was stationed above the two UFOs, there was a top secret Canadian military base disguised as an oceanographic institute. The name of this secret facility was the Canadian Forces Station Shelburne, or CFS Shelburne, and its purpose was to use underwater microphones and magnetic detection devices to listen for Soviet submarines in the Atlantic. And this secret base, CFS Shelburne, could listen to the entire Atlantic Ocean. It's said that their microphones belonging to CFS Shelburne heard everything. They heard the initial crash and submerging at Shag Harbour. They heard the two UFOs leave Shag Harbour and situate themselves on the seabed off of Shelburne, which is how they knew to get the secret destroyer flotilla out over to the UFO's exact resting spot. The microphones heard the UFOs leave the Shelburne area and head to the Gulf of Maine, and they likely even heard the two UFOs break the surface at the Gulf of Maine as they headed off into the sky towards God knows where. Now, if this is true, this is just amazing. But that's the thing. No one knows if this is true or not. I mean, yes, something did land or crash in Shag Harbour on the night of October 4th, 1967. There's no question about that. And yes, tons of people saw this thing, including civilians, a boat captain and his crew, the police, and pilots. Can't forget them. We also heard a firsthand account in this episode. So yes, something did happen. And there's even a photograph of something. Just check the show notes. And that something coincides with the story told by Air Canada Flight 305, the blue explosion. And there really was a secret submarine detection facility a short distance from Shag Harbour. And yes, official records do state that this was an actual unidentified flying object, a UFO. And exactly what that UFO was, a plane, a satellite, space debris, or an alien craft, is anyone's guess. But the rest of it, the flotilla of destroyers, two UFOs, alien beings, a Russian sub, all that is hearsay with no documentation to back any of it up. But man, I hope it's true. What a story.
Right.
Now, before we close this episode, I just want to mention that over the years, decades more like, people have searched the seabed at Shag Harbour numerous times, looking for that one piece of evidence that will prove to the world that this really was an alien craft that crashed. Divers claim to have found circular indentations in the sea floor, on top of which, for some reason, no vegetation would grow and no crustacean would crawl.
Wow.
In around 1988, a man named Gordon Fader, a local marine geologist, scanned the sea floor with a certain type of radar. Can't remember what it was called, and found a series of 4 circles or 4 round depressions in the seafloor, an inconsistency for the sea bottom in Shag Harbor when compared to the rest of the environment. And each depression was roughly 21 feet around. They reminded Fader of the markings left by a drilling station, even though no drilling station ever existed in Shag Harbor. Now, in 2019, Celine and Fabian Cousteau, grandchildren of the late great oceanographer and conservationalist Jacques Cousteau, one of my heroes, brought their television series, Legends of the Deep, to Shag Harbor in hopes of finding evidence of a UFO on the seafloor, or at the very least, the 4 mysterious circular impressions mapped by Gordon Fader in 1988.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, the Cousteaus, they didn't find either. The Cousteaus believed that if the markings left by a UFO crash were there, or the weird circular impressions were there at some time in the past, decades of ocean currents eroded any evidence away, and now it's lost forever. But they don't completely deny that a UFO could have crashed there. It's a very interesting story. That's what I got on the Shag Harbour UFO incident.
Yeah,
I really
do you know if any films or anything like that has been made from it?
I didn't. I honestly did tons of documentaries.
It feels sensationalized enough for like it might be. I mean, not sensationalized, but I mean, I feel like it can be sensationalized into like a film or a TV series.
Yeah, I don't know if an actual movie, a Hollywood movie was made about this. I don't think so. I didn't look for that in particular. But plenty of documentaries, some good, some terrible.
Yeah. No, I bet. Yeah.
A good, I would say a good fountain of information out there. Some of it you have to dig for, especially that second half when the UFO submerged and then went off to another resting location. Not a lot of information on that. You really have to search for that, but lots of information about the actual Shag Harbor crash itself out there. But no one talks about it. I don't know why. Fascinating story. Great story.
I wonder if that's because the people of Nova Scotia and maybe therefore the country, they're like, well, they did talk about it. That decade, that year, it was talked about.
And now we're over it.
Where they were over it. And I mean, it's not like this goes on periodically or anything. It's not like that location is a hotbed for this activity. It was that time.
That day,
right?
Yeah, that night.
Right, that night, right? October 3rd, 4th. And, but yeah, these incidents kind of force you to like forget them, honestly, which happens a lot with other incidents too, because they happen, whatever it is, and we have to move on. Like,
right.
What are you gonna do? Wait for the next one? Not live a life while you do that? Not, what do you? Yeah, we can't track them. We don't know what they are. We don't know enough. We just don't know enough. All we can do is marvel at the incidents and just track them and log them as we can.
Yeah.
But it's a great story. I definitely didn't hear of it either.
Yeah. Great story. I can tell you, Shag Harbor is a lot like Roswell in that this fantastic incident completely shaped the community, the town. They have UFO festivals. They embrace it.
I wonder, do they have that landing platform there?
Landing platform? No,
they probably don't. You ever heard of a landing platform being made there for potentially other UFOs?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, nothing that I found like that. No. I don't think Norm Smith would deal with that.
Well, I'm sure it's not just up to him, but yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's Shag Harbour UFO Incident. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, guys, let us know if you've heard of it before. We'd like to know, and then what kind of like maybe misconceptions you had on the story that we maybe cleared up here, or maybe you have additional information that we just don't know. Right, that would be interesting. That would be cool, but obviously, I'm less likely for that to happen. But if it does happen, obviously, we'll welcome it. Otherwise, I don't have a lot else other than I don't have any other questions or anything. Other than there's not a question, I guess, is a remark, but like the difference in the countries,
Responses.
our next door neighbors, right? Their responses is that kind of gets to me. It's just as surprising as seeing, you telling the story about all these eyewitnesses and accounts and pictures, and it's just as amazing as the way their government or responding officers or whatever you want to call it, air people, responded to this and compared to just 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To this day, even more so. It is astounding and it sucks.
It does suck. But hopefully disclosures on the horizon.
Right.
We'll get it all. Who knows?
Wow. But Canada's a big place, though.
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they seem to be a lot more lax or loose with their UFO reports and things.
They seemingly are. I wonder if there are many others. So there are. Not that you may not know the number, but I wonder what other incidents have they encountered.
Oh, there's tons. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but Canada's had its lion's share of UFO sightings for sure.
I imagine they would have to, not because of the land they own, but they're also next to ours, and we get a lot. So it stands to reason that they should get a lot too, right?
Yeah, I mean, wrapped into this Shag Harbour incident, a week later, 7 days later, off the Gulf of Maine, there was another dual UFO sighting, which supposedly coincides to them leaving the seabed.
Right.
Like I mentioned in the story here. But so yeah, they've definitely had their fair share. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe one day we'll research more.
Yeah. Exactly.
And let us know what you thought of the Norman Smith interview. That was a first.
Oh, please. Us. Yes, that was. And I like how it's uniquely tailored for our show.
Yeah. Yeah. And he also mentioned Randy Tucker, who's of Somewhere Out There Radio. He's been on the show before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, super, super cool. Something very unique for this show.
Yeah, man. Good job. I love it.
Awesome. Well, if that's it, Oscar, will you fly us home?
Yes, but you hate flying.
I do, and I hate UFOs too.
I'll take you on a ship.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, week and a half-ish. Week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Today my brother and my nephew came by to visit, which has been a long time since. It was good.
Nice.
He did his homework here and stuff. We just ate pizza and saw the girls, and they're great. I just cracked open I carved a pumpkin for them because they love pumpkins.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So you carved like a jack-o'-lantern?
Yeah, I mean, no shapes. Cool. I just carved like ins and outs in the pumpkin, and so they can climb around in there.
Oh, that's stupid adorable.
It is really ridiculously adorable, and they love to eat the seeds. So what I do is I just like toast the seeds a bit and then give it to them.
Oh, wow.
And they just go all over.
That is cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Nice. Then shipping containers quadrupled, or whatever the number after quadruple is. I don't know.
Quintupled?
Quintupled in price, if not more. Containers are coming over half full. You get them to the U.S. ports. There's problems getting the products off the ships because of shortage of longshoremen, problems at customs. Then there's shortage of train cars, trucks, truck drivers, you name it.
So it's a real domino effect of there's a problem in every sort of process between someone clicking to order and getting that to them.
Yes.
Like from that point to this point, it's a real fucking trial
Yeah. And there's no end in sight. There's no end in sight. We're not going to have product until probably March, April, May of 2022. Yeah. Nuts.
Wow.
And no one's talking about it. Drive by a car lot, an auto dealership. Half the lot is empty because they can't get cars in because there's no computer chips to put in the cars.
Like there is a Ford dealership like a block away, right from me. The one with the funny commercial, the Golf Mill Ford.
Oh, I remember Golf Mill.
It's
Ford.
right there. Yeah, it's like a block away.
What does that look like?
It does look emptier, but I never really look at it anymore. I don't come from that direction anymore. That's why I don't look at it as much. But the few times that I have, you're right. I have noticed that they have lesser cars. They usually put their overflow across the street into the empty parking lots that no one uses in the Golf Mill Center, the mall, because they have so much parking spaces in the far edges that no one uses except for like drug dealers and cops looking for speeders. That's it. You know? So they use their overflow. I haven't seen overflow there since COVID. So,
see, it's a very real thing, and it's getting worse. And I don't know. I'm starting to think there's more to it. Like there's some concerted effort to do something, but
this is the kind of thing that makes us that makes our, I don't want to say profession, but our podcast or our beliefs in, or not beliefs in conspiracies, but our talks about conspiracies a little more legit, because it's like I'm not gonna blame anyone for saying they don't believe all these conspiracies. Obviously, it's kind of unbelievable, some of this stuff, and I get it, but I can't imagine. But what's even more unbelievable is if someone comes to me and says, there is absolutely no conspiracies out there ever.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
Right. No such thing. No way. You believe in none of them. None of them are true. None of them whatsoever are true. No way. No way. Impossible. That's way more. That's way less likely than believing in 5 or something, or a few of them.
You're right. Especially the world we're living in today.
Right. Yeah.
It's a strange place, strange time, man.
Yeah, it is. More and more every day, it seems, or at least more is shown.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's been up with me.
It's a lot.
It's been rough. It's been rough.
Okay. We obviously it's not gonna be part of the main show, but I'm gonna start with asking you.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna start by asking you before I ask you about the movie.
My blood pressure.
It's
already going up.
How do you feel today about the ending of the show? I know we talked about it before.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, is that you have either calmed down from that ending or have retrofittedly think something else about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not angry about it anymore. I was at the time for sure, just like everybody else. You were so invested in this show and these characters, and it became a ritual to watch, and then to have it end like that was just it felt like a slap in the face at the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I still think it's a shitty way to end a show. It's a piss poor way. Oh, we're gonna leave it up to the audience. No, fuck you. You're lazy. That's the way I feel about it. But yeah, I'm over it. I would never watch it again. But
I want to watch it again. Okay. So I said, because I wasn't sure, because I thought, I don't know if you changed your mind on it or not, but you haven't. But you still not you're not mad anymore, but you haven't changed your mind about the ending.
Correct. I mean, I have an opinion on what happened. I do believe he got killed. I
mean, I don't think it's an opinion at all. I don't think it leaves anything ambiguous. I think they'll die. It's 100% for sure. I don't see why people ever were confused by it. My opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was with you on that day too, because I think we saw it together, didn't we?
Did we? We were at our place in Oak Park.
I went to your Oak Park place a lot. I think we saw it together.
Did we? Okay.
I don't remember, but I remember that we thought the same thing. I remember thinking the same thing. I know you did too. So again, maybe that's why I'm confusing it. But that the fucking cable went out, or
absolutely. I literally got up and checked the back of the television.
Right,
but then the cable came out,
and I was the same way. But there's two things with that, and one of them is that culturally, everyone claims, a lot of people, critics mainly, critics and filmmakers claim that The Sopranos is when the golden age of cinema, TV started, right? Golden age of TV shows started and came out. And before that, TV shows were shit compared until The Sopranos came, right? That's how good it was, right? And I agree. It's a great fucking show.
Yeah.
I've since rewatched the show once more, and I have the Blu-rays. I'm going to watch it again. That maybe next year or this year. I don't know when I'll start, because I have the Blu-rays. And when I rewatched it years later, but now it's been years since then, with a friend, I was showing it to her for the first time to her. I was like noticing how much funnier it was. I'm like, oh my God, this is really funny and great, and it's fucking awesome. I found out that my second rewatch that the show is very obvious.
Is it really?
It's super obvious. There's nothing ambiguous.
As far as what's going to happen at the end?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing ambiguous about it. I saw it again. I was like, it was so painfully obvious that Jay's eyes today will notice it immediately.
Really?
Yes, 100%. Even if you've seen it for the first time today, you would still like, oh yeah, they're all dead. Except for Meadow, who's parking in the front.
Right. So AJ too.
Yeah. And Carmela.
And Carmela, yeah.
Yeah. So here's why it's obvious. One, and I don't know if you remember this, because again, we saw a lot of these episodes together. In that last season, there's a deal that Tony does with Colombians, I think. I don't remember, some South American cartel or group of criminals. And they're talking like not behind his back, but they're talking in Spanish in front of him in order for him not to understand them. And I translated it for you that day. I said, holy shit, he said something about bumping him off, about doing some hit on him or something. He said something like that. He didn't say it like that, but he said, are we going to do that thing with Tony soon? But he said it to his partner in Spanish as Tony's looking puzzly at him. Like, what did you say? I don't understand you,
Whoa.
As they're finishing this deal. And I remember, and again, I have to rewatch it again because I don't remember the details anymore, but I know that that involved Paulie. It involved like, that's Paulie's scheme or plan or or whatever, and that my hypothesis, again, not knowing the details anymore, is that was at the time that Paulie hired these guys to kill Tony after this deal was made with whoever the big bad was at the time, and that Paulie was taking over because he was the only remaining crew member.
Oh my God!
Because Sil was dead. Everyone else is dead. Everyone's dead by that point.
Sil was dead.
Sil got killed when he got shot. Remember?
I honestly don't.
He got shot in the last episode or the second to last episode, I want to say. And then Paulie was the only remaining one. He was having a lot of troubles with Tony and his leadership and his bullshit. The whole thing with the mom, with the whole thing with the church. He was constantly like fucking hating everyone and hating how his life was in his shitty house and shit. And kind of, I think he wanted more. And I think he planned this thing. That was my idea. Anyway, but that's that's just a hypothesis. Now, to the ending, the second to the last episode, Tony literally, or what's the second? Yeah, it was second to last episode. Tony literally, they do a flashback on earlier that season where Tony and some guy talks about how it feels, how when you die, it all goes to black.
Did they really?
They really said it. They not only put it in the season, but they also flash back to it in the episode before the ending.
Holy shit.
Where Tony mentions that, how it goes to black when like nothing happens, just goes to black and you're just gone. And then that movie, and then the show ends that way. It's so obvious that's what makes it. Yeah.
I don't remember any of that, man.
Because we were just watching it too closely. We were just watching it too closely and week by week, and we were just not paying attention. I wasn't either back then.
Wow.
I missed it. I completely missed it.
Yeah, well, then if all that is true, then all of a sudden the ending is completely different.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. It's pretty obvious too. And which of the two goons that come in after Tony into the restaurant?
Yes.
That those two are the ones. They're just waiting for them to all sit down and shit. Maybe they're waiting for Meadow and she takes too long and they just do it. Who knows?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't sure about the whole family. I just thought Tony maybe, but that's horrible.
No, because I think you were only one guy. I think it's more obvious that it would be all of them if there were more than one. Damn. Yeah.
And I love the Paulie theory. I have to.
Like I really had. I'm going to rewatch it, but I've been having a lot of conversations with people. I wasn't just you that hated the movie, and then made them talk about the show and how they hated the ending. I'm like, it wasn't that bad, guys. But anyway, so the movie.
Oh God,
what did you want from the movie? That's my question to you. What did you expect before you hit play? What did you?
I really thought it was. I really thought it was going to be the New Jersey crew that we loved, right? With the series, I thought it was going to be a New Jersey crew origin story, seeing them all grow up, getting involved in the mafia.
That's also what I wanted. That's what we all wanted. You're right. Yeah, I also did not expect that.
Yeah, and for people to say, "Oh, well, you should have known by many saints, Multisante," fuck off. No one expected that's what it was going to be. I'm sorry. Some character that was randomly mentioned throughout the Sopranos series was going to. It doesn't make sense.
You know, they did a Deadwood movie, right? Deadwood from the show that never got finished. They did a Deadwood movie. Years later, 10 years, I think, in the 10th year anniversary of the show ending, they did a movie to make a finale, right? Now, if that movie involved like some father side character version of that, I would have been pissed. But it wasn't. They included every motherfucker from the show. It was about them, So like, I get it, and I was with you. And I think what I should have done is that I should have read or seen I should have read the plot synopsis before, or I should have seen the trailer before, because then I wouldn't have been. And then I would go into that movie knowing that it's not about the crew, the beloved crew that we know. I mean, it's about some of them a little bit, but not really.
A little bit, yeah.
Like they're like in the background. Like, I mean, it was fucked up seeing Tony's mom. Like, oh my God, like, this is the beginning of the headaches.
Yeah.
With the mother, and she did a good job though over here for me. I
think so.
Mom,
yeah.
Like she reminded me so much of that old. I'm like, oh my God, shut up! Like, I'm like, it's so bullshit. I'm like, I can see why Tony needs fucking therapy.
Therapy, yeah.
Yeah, right. And they do a couple scenes with Tony, but like it wasn't enough. You're right. I wanted more. And the thing is that I don't know what they thought they were trying to do with this, because this movie, like, it depends on the knowledge. It depends on you knowing The Sopranos, the show, to work, because they do a lot of shorthand.
Yeah.
They don't have to explain. They linger on characters that if this movie wasn't about The Sopranos, let's say it was just a period gangster movie in New Jersey, like they would have to explain a lot more, or they wouldn't linger on a character that we don't give a shit about because we don't know who Tony or Paulie or Syl is, right? Yeah. But the fact that they did both of those is like, you're right. It is like the worst version of both worlds. Like, you need the show to watch the movie, but you want a different movie in order to appreciate the show more.
Yeah, good way to put it. That's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. So I ultimately agree with you. I don't think it was as bad as your text thread. I wasn't like that at all from me. My bigger problem was that, what in the fuck? I mean, forget Pollock Troy. Okay, forget Pollock Troy.
There's nobody better. Like,
okay, well, John Bernthal is Italian. He's not Italian.
But
why the fuck is that white guy June? Uncle June is not that guy. Who is that guy?
You mean like what was the guy's name?
His name. He's in like tons
Dominic
of things.
Chianese, I think, is who played Uncle June. Dominic Chianese.
Oh no, I'm saying in the remake in this movie.
Oh yeah, no.
Who played him was some white guy. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah. He was in that vampire TV show is what I know him from.
Yes.
With the Strigoi.
He's also from House of Cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But like Dominic Chianese, he didn't have a son or a grandson that could have played him. They had to pull in this guy.
They pulled in Tony's real son or whatever. What's his name?
Oh,
to be him.
Right. Michael or whatever.
That worked, and he was a good actor. I think he did a good job. But like, there was, I forget sons. Like, there's really no Italian. Right. There's like 10,000 of them. Jesus Christ, there's so many. They built bridges here. They can't act. Of course, they can't act. So I was thinking, like, that bothered me way more. I'm like, what are you doing, movie? Like, what is this?
Yeah, I didn't know that was Uncle June until
I can't find them as racist when they're just differently. They themselves are miscast. It's just so it just all felt wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Wrong. Paulie looked like a fucking I don't even know what he looked like.
Oh, Paulie. Oh no, I think he looked almost like exactly like Paulie.
Did you think so? Well, maybe
like a younger Paulie with the suit, him giving a shit about the suit, and when they torture that guy and he still spills blood on him. I'm like, that's such a Paulie scene.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
can see
that.
like an older Paulie going. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, how about
good?
How about Pussy?
Yeah, Pussy was bad.
What the fuck was that?
I don't know what that was. I have no idea what that was.
In 2 Ray Liotta's.
What is it with that? I mean, I feel like maybe if I watch the show, are they going to mention some twins in the show, right? I don't know what they did. Did they mine the show to get that information? And they're like, oh, well, we mentioned the twins. Either there are hardcore fans out there. We gotta put them in. Is that what they did? Or because it's a very obscure fact because I didn't know.
Right. Yes. Like that's a deep cut. Like who the hell?
Deep cut of a 15-year-old show. I don't know if it works. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I don't get it. I mean, I like Ray Liotta, but like, if he's dead, like, cast someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, cast someone else. I literally thought like my stream skipped, or
oh really?
Something happened with the stream and it just skipped ahead.
Yeah.
And I missed all the explanation, but no, twin Ray Liotta's.
Yeah, I feel like this. This movie. I would have appreciated this movie had we had already that movie of the crew going up, and if we go back more in time, like if this was a second one from after all that, like what got them going, what led to them being the New Jersey crew that would eventually lead them in the 2000s. Like that would have been cool, but to start with this, no,
yeah, or maybe a part 2 to this, the Many Saints of Newark, more Saints of Newark. I don't know.
Yeah,
take it up from when he did that stupid pinky thing in the casket. Take it from there in the next movie. Okay, I'm in.
Pinky thing. Oh yeah. Oh right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to feel about that. Actually, I don't know if I like their story device at all, because is Chris talking to us beyond the grave? What's going on here? Like, I don't know if I like they got the actor to do it, but like,
yes, yeah, that's the way I took it. Chris is talking to us from the future.
Yeah, and he keeps
he's from the future.
I guess so. Yeah, but he's from a future where he's dead. So
yes,
because he keeps talking about this guy who's going to kill him, and he's like a teenager right now.
He's like the ghost of Christmas future. What the fuck is happening? I don't know.
Italian Christmas future. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. And also, like, one of the best things about the show that they did so good was the dream sequences, and we had no dream sequences in this one.
Oh, that's another good point.
Would have been cool to see something like stick to the bones of what made the show awesome, and make us revisit that by putting a dream sequence in. That would have been cool.
Yeah, true.
Again, that's more my opinion than that one, I guess. But yeah, man, I don't know.
Or even give me the story of John Bernthal's character. He was a maniac, a lunatic. That would have been a great story.
He did seem like a maniac, and every time he left the screen to do some crazy thing, we just got stuck in some house somewhere. Or something else,
Yeah.
You're
right.
I don't know.
And then just the way the movie was put together, it was, I think I said this in my text, like it just seemed like random scenes forced together. It was very strange the way it just flowed and moved, and I don't know. It was bad. 20 minutes into it, I text Vario because he was watching it like an hour before I did. He was like an hour ahead of me when I started. So 20 minutes into it, I text him like, when does this thing get good? And he just wrote back, it doesn't. I'm like, oh no. And the whole, listen, New Jersey riots, I'm sure they were terrible. Maybe that's something people should be talking about and exploring and whatever, but
maybe not in a Sopranos fucking movie.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but
again, it would have been awesome if it was part of this larger scale, like sequels. Maybe like this should be this feels like a part 2 to another part 1 movie. It feels like they did the wrong background check on this.
Yeah. And maybe Chase started it and realized
it's like saying like, tell me about Al Capone. I'm like, for that we're gonna have to start with the Romans. I'm like, what? No, tell me when he was born. What? No, How do you get to Chicago? First, when the Indians had Chicago. Well, no.
You're so right. That is
No, I don't want you to go that far back. Just tell me about Al Capone. So his mother. No. Right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're right. I love it. Tell me about Al Capone. Well, the Indians, no.
It was a garbage dump. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
How about that?
Do you think David Chase started and then realized, shit, I don't have anything, and then just he had to finish?
Well, I don't know much about David Chase. I know that he is considered to be extremely, I mean, he's a very well writer. He's a great writer, obviously, but and director and all that. But I don't know what's up his thing. I don't know what he thinks. I don't know if if this is like immense pressure coming out. But if he waited this long and felt like he had a story and this was his story, then he didn't really know his audience. Because I feel like a guy like that who doesn't have to really make anything. I'm not saying he's super rich or anything. I'm sure he's fine, but he's definitely not as prominent as he used to be. But like it's such a long time ago that people have let go, like you have with the Sopranos ending, or have forgotten it, or saw it and loved it, maybe, whatever. But it's been so long that I can't see why he would feel the need to make one and make this. I don't know. Was he getting pressured? I have no idea the background in this movie. I would love to find out what that is, though.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
One thing I read in a few different articles was that he really wanted to do a movie about the New Jersey riots, the Newark riots. That's what he really wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So it seems like he just kind of spun in the Sopranos to maybe help fund his little passion project of the Newark riots.
That I can see. I mean, that I can see. There's a great example of this. Have you seen 10 Cloverfield Lane? Yes.
Great
movie. I don't know if you loved it, but I loved it.
That's the one with John Goodman in the basement, right? In the fallout.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
I liked it.
And Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And that movie's great. It's an actual sequel or prequel, whatever you want to call it, to the Cloverfield found footage horror movie, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Godzilla movie, right? It wasn't that for the longest time. That script wasn't written to be a Cloverfield movie.
Oh.
It was written as something else entirely, completely original, different thing. They retrofitted a Cloverfield plot in there or whatever with the ending in order to get funding to make the movie.
Oh, see?
Famously so. It was like a famous low success story. That's how they were able to make the movie.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. But that was like a passion indie movie, really, that got turned into a bigger hit.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's what happened here.
It must have. That's the only thing I can think of. They go up to David Chase and oh man, I want to make the Newark riots. I'm like, no one gives a fucking shit about the Newark riot. You know how many riots we have this month, or they probably tell them that, and they're like, but we love the Sopranos. You want to do why don't you include them into the Newark riots? See what they were up to at the time. You could do that. You could still have your Newark riots thing. And then he may look at it and like, well, I really want to do a Newark riots, right? But the history goes too far back to actually include the characters from The Sopranos in a meaningful way, right? Which is what we wanted, like them. But they clearly dominated the 80s more, right? 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's too far back. So I guess I could go further back and talk about the Multisanti crew and all this shit. And that
makes so much sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sad.
Yeah.
And, it sounds like I was like you. You didn't watch any trailers. You didn't read synopsis or anything. I stayed purposely away from it. I didn't.
I stayed pretty clean on that.
Yeah, I had faith. I had faith that I was going to go in and love this.
Right.
And then to have that shit happen. Oh, my Lord.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Yeah. And I think I said this in the text too, but I think my favorite part of the movie was the foreshadowing with Christopher as a baby.
Oh, right. I
With
remember you
Tony.
mentioning that. Yeah, I actually hated that.
Did you really?
Really
Oh.
did. I was so on the nose. I'm like, it was just like, it's like if Darth Vader just fucking says, "You know, I'm your father, right?" Like it just felt so weird. Like it felt too on the nose. It felt preachy. It felt like, look, we're part of the Sopranos series. You know,
I can
like,
totally see. I can
So,
see that for sure. Yeah.
It felt off, especially when that old lady, the grandma, whoever she was, she's like, you know, when babies, I'm like, bitch, you don't need to explain it.
Yeah.
If they just dropped that part out, I would have been with you and like, okay, that was cool. Like the baby doesn't want to get near Tony. But you don't explain it. What the fuck is wrong with you, old bag?
So
This ain't your
something-
fucking old country shit. Sorry.
What's interesting, you mentioned the lady, the grandma or whatever she was. Another, because I read a lot about this movie. I wanted to see what people were thinking. And
right.
one of the things I said is that in Sopranos, I vaguely remember this. Tony would talk to Dr. Melfi about having a nightmare about a shadow woman, this shadowy woman who would be in his dreams or nightmares and would scare the shit out of him. And everyone assumed it was his mother.
Yeah.
But they're saying in actuality, it was that woman, that superstitious grandmother figure, whoever she was, that Tony was really afraid of. And that's who it was in his dreams. So maybe that's why she actually had a speaking part, you know?
That's dumb. Sorry.
No, it's
Didn't
okay.
say well. Again, it's like before with that other thing. You know, like it's too obscure. Like Twin Ray Liotta's. If it is a reference to something in the show, like you just referenced a part of the show from one of the Melfi sessions, it's too obscure. I don't remember that.
Too deep.
2015? Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't know it until I read it. You know?
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
well, vaguely, I kind of remember the Shadow Lady, but anyway, that's who it was supposed to be. Yeah, it just overall didn't make sense. Nope. I didn't know it was Uncle June until someone actually called him June.
Yeah, until he slipped on the front of the funeral thing.
Oh,
I didn't know that because they mentioned his name more at that point.
I see.
And I was like, oh, that's him. That was him the whole time. I'm like, okay,
sure.
They've probably been calling him by his full name or
I think
something,
so.
and I just fucking missed it every time. Yeah.
But
I'm
then
like, oh, that's him, and like that little petty bitch, just because he's laughing at you, gonna shoot him? Like, all right, fine. I mean, that's true though. That's a lot of that happened a lot in Sopranos. So.
Oh, little slights get you killed.
Yeah, but that's also true in the Scorsese movie. Basically, mob movies in general. This happens a lot.
Yeah, I guess you're right. What am I, a fucking clown? I'm here to amuse you?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I thought when he did dress, like towards the end, when he's in the payphone booth, when he's in the thick glasses, the black glasses, he's got the little hat on, he's wearing that kind of comfy looking overcoat. You know, he did look, I thought he kind of looked like Uncle June at that point. But all throughout, terrible.
Yeah, most of that, no. He was
didn't
engaged
get it.
and shit.
Yeah.
He was like the number 2, right? Or something.
Well, he was in Sopranos. Wasn't Uncle June technically the leader of the New Jersey crew?
Well, he must have been later after he killed Moltisanti. But like in the movie, he's like Moltisanti's number 2.
Oh, sorry. Yes. But now in Sopranos, was he number 1 or was he number 2?
He wasn't number 1 at the start of the show. He was too old already. But it was someone else that someone dies and then something happens in New York that leads Tony to be the number 1. If I remember correct, I'm gonna watch it. So
I really should.
They're good. It's a good show.
Severo binged it before the movie came out.
Oh, he did?
He did, yeah. He watched all 6 seasons.
Okay. He doesn't have hobbies, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'm like, don't you work? Every morning, I was like, oh, I'm watching Sopranos. I'm like, don't you work?
Okay. So what do you think? Did he like the show still or no?
No, he fucking hated it. Oh, the show?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he liked the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Movie? No, hated it.
No, the movie I got.
What was her name? Filipina. She was cool.
Oh, the Chris's girl or
Dickie's. Yeah, his father's the one that his father brought over from Italy.
Yeah,
she was pretty good.
Yeah, She was good. I liked her. Didn't like how she got fucking drowned that way, but also like dumbass bitch. Don't tell him anything. What's wrong?
No. Oh my God. And he's like,
I knew that. I knew the second I knew the second when she right before she said it. I'm like, you're dead. That's your last speech right there.
yeah.
Right before, like that, you're dead. This fucking guy has too much to prove. He's like old school Italian bullshit. He's gonna kill you.
Oh
You're
yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, no matter what it is, we'll get through it. I love you. I love you. I slept with a herald. You motherfucker.
Mhm.
Yeah. No. Wasn't gonna let her get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
She must be from Sicily.
I
Sorry.
know I'm trying to be good in case you use it for outtakes.
No, I know, but they also mentioned the joke in the movie too. So.
Did they?
Yeah, they do. They say something. They're in a barbershop or some like group of people, and someone mentions like, "Hey, aren't you from Sicily? Aren't you? Oh no, they don't say it like that. Aren't you part black or something like that?" And like, "Oh no, those are only from Sicily. I'm from northern." He says something. Like that. He mentions it like,
oh,
that.
I think he's like, yeah, I'm Napolitan or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, like even when they used Italian words, it seemed just terribly forced. Or
Not
just,
enough Marons.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just either terribly forced or just overemphasized that they said it. It was no, didn't work.
Agreed.
And hearing Ray Liotta speak Italian, just cut it out.
Yeah, was that bad? I don't know. I don't have a good
It was
Italian
bad.
ear.
It was pretty bad. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he got. I don't understand some of this. Like, Ray Liotta is famous for being in gangster movies, particularly Goodfellas, right?
Oh yeah.
Like nearly all of his success comes from Goodfellas, right? Everything that he's enjoyed today in jobs, in movies, has been from the strength of Goodfellas.
Sure.
And I don't know why people forget this. He's not Italian in those movies. He's half Italian at best.
No,
He's
that's right.
Irish. He's mainly like he will never be a made guy, and he was always a guy who would never killed either. Like, why are everyone trying to force feed Ray Liotta as something that he isn't?
Good.
Well, he was famous for something that he isn't.
Another great point. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah. I couldn't wait to talk to you about it. Thanks to this show, now they're going to make a Dickie Moltisanti Part 2. Dickie lives.
No. It's called Dickie's Revenge.
Dickie's Revenge. Oh, God. And they're like, oh, Uncle June said that Tony doesn't have what it takes to be a football player. Oh, my God, it's such a throwback to Sopranos. I can't take it. Or the Beehive. Oh, they did the Beehive scene. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if he couldn't play football or she got shot through the Beehive. I don't care.
I don't think it was Uncle June that really deterred him. It was mainly the mother. Let's face it. It was the mother.
Oh,
The mother was playing everything with him with the football, even before we even saw Tony. Like, oh my God, this woman is so horrible.
You see this in football, Tony? Yeah, ma. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Okay, ma.
Jesus. My mom is fucking Mary Poppins compared to that one.
Every worst nightmare is Mary Poppins compared to what that woman turns into.
Yes, that's true.
And when Vera, when my girl Vera went to talk to the principal of the school,
Mm-hmm.
and the principal was telling the story of what Tony told her,
Mm-hmm.
did you think that was going to take another turn? Didn't she set it up almost like the mother did something wrong with Tony while she was in bed with him? So they really set it up to almost seem like it was going to go molestation, but it didn't.
So low key, high key, I thought that's still on the table.
Oh,
but here's what I thought of that scene. The good thing you reminded me. I thought that it is bringing that up, and I don't know if this is because of the times, right? That people weren't aware of this kind of thing generally or right away. When the teacher was talking about it, she was talking about it, or the principal, she was talking about it in terms of a great memory that they both had. But with her face, those reactions, it felt like she was worried about maybe being seen as someone that did something wrong in that moment, which maybe makes me think that she did do something, but the principal doesn't know what this memory is actually about. You know, like they both misinterpreted what each other started. You know, it felt weird in that scene. And they never bring it back, really. I mean, she tries to be nice to Tony based on that conversation. And obviously that fails immediately because she's up on her ass. She's fucking psychotic. She's psychotic.
Yeah, she needs that medicine.
Oh my God. And actually, this scene I did like, when Dickie was killed and they're at the funeral, this is like the last scene. She goes to one of her friends, I guess, the Vera Farmiga. She goes to one of her friends, and they found a bottle of that drug in Dickie's pocket. I'm like, bitch, that was for you, bitch.
That's right.
And they're like, oh man, you never know about people. I'm like, oh my God. That was cool. That was a cool little touch. I like that.
Oh, good point taken. You're right.
Yeah. I'm like, bitch, that wasn't for him.
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one that got that feel, that icky feel from that scene.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know how on purpose David Chase wanted it to be. But it felt like on purpose because, again, Vera Farmiga had very strange reactions to that. Like, oh my God, am I getting caught to something?
You're absolutely right.
And the principal is like, oh no, it's like it's fair memory. Oh, so it wasn't about that. Like, okay. So,
wow. So then I guess that would add a whole nother layer to Tony's neuroses and whatever condition he was.
His Oedipal complex, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck yeah. Okay, I like the movie now. No,
but the movie's not like completely irredeemable. Yeah, because the showrunners, when Sopranos was going on, they really wanted to keep the mother character the whole time, all 7 seasons or 6 seasons, whatever it is. But they, she died in between seasons 2 and 3 or 3 and 4.
Oh, that early?
The actors died, yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
they didn't want to recast her because she did such a great job. They killed her off halfway, in the seasons. But like they wanted, the initial plan was to always have her be like the key
antagonist,
the key problem, right? The key problem for Tony and his psychosis and everything that makes Tony Tony. They really wanted to leave her in it. I was glad when she died because she's just so odious that but in retrospect, yes, that is the best foil for that character. It is literally everything that makes him a bad person and all this, and you can see how it started with her, a lot of it. So yeah, they had to drop that, obviously, but that was a thing.
We could go on forever about this, can't we?
We very nearly can.
Yeah.